second open webinar organized jointly by the UPU and IPC. The topic today is alternative vehicles and transport. In the room here in Bern, we have Lovisa Selander. And Lovisa, you can introduce yourself perhaps.
Well, I'm Lovisa Selander. I'm the Sustainable Development Expert at the Universal Postal Union. Happy to be the host of this webinar together with Pieter.
Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. I'm Pieter Reitsma. I'm Manager Sustainability at IPC. And in the webinar today, we have registered attendees from Suriname Post, from Deutsche Post, one of the presenters, from Royal Mail, from Post Nord, Australia Post, Emirates Post, Swiss Post, Post Maroc, Iraq Post, Post Italiana, and Belize Postal Service. A very warm welcome to you all, and I hope you can all hear us good. Today we have two presentations. One will be from Lars Pappe, Vice President Mobility Strategy of Deutsche Post DHL. And the second presentation is from Antoine Doussaint, Deputy Director CSR at Le Groupe La Poste. We will start with Lars of Deutsche Post, and the schedule is like this. We will start with Lars, then we have around 10 minutes to take some questions from you. And then we will start the second presentation from Antoine of Le Groupe La Poste. For your information, we will record this full event. And one other practical thing I would like to ask you is to please mute your computer, phone, or headset during the presentations. And please, could you use the hand on your screen or use the chat if you'd like to ask questions. So without much other things, yes, I think we can start, Louisa, with the first presentation.
I think we can start, and if, as Pieter pointed out, if you need to reach us, if you have trouble hearing us in any way, or if you have trouble, don't know how to ask a question, please use the chat function so that we can help you. And the raising the hand function that Pieter mentioned, you will find next to your name in the list of participants. There is a small hand you can click on, and if you do that, we know you will want to ask a question and can give you the floor. So now we hand over to Lars.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity to share some insights from e-mobility at DPDHL Group. I headlined the first slide with e-mobility meets Universal Postal Union, and I'm very happy to share some insights about the e-mobility within DPDHL Group. And I would suggest, because it's a very short time we have, right to start with the first slide. At the beginning, I want to give you a more general overview about street scooter within Deutsche Post DHL. Afterwards, a brief history of the company and the car itself. Then I will switch to the product portfolio, and at the end of my presentation, which most likely is 10 minutes long, I'm talking about some current projects we are running with the street scooter outside Germany within the group. As you maybe know, DPDHL is strongly committed to a zero emission target by the year 2050. So our board members decided that the last mile and the whole logistics, what is DPDHL offering, so air freight, ocean freight, and road freight, and last mile delivery will be zero emission by the year 2050. This is our global target, and up front to that, we have some special local targets, and one of them is that we want to have, even by the year 2025, 70% of our pickup and delivery service and delivery solutions green fleet solutions, which not only means it is fully electric, it can be as well with hybrid vehicles, it can be with LNG, CNG, or hydrogen, but most of these pickup and delivery routes will be routed with electric mobility. A couple of years ago, it really started with some ideas from our board members in why is there a necessity for e-mobility in general? So, just to give an example, on the domestic letter and parcel delivery service within Germany, we normally used products, for example, from Volkswagen Transporter, Volkswagen Caddy, or from Renault, like the Kangoo, or from Iveco. And the daily route with a delivery vehicle for a postal serviceman and woman in Germany is between 25 and 40 kilometers a day, with up to 300 stops a day. So when you have 300 starts and stops during a day, you can imagine that you have quite a lot of diesel or fuel consumption. The average consumption for a Volkswagen Caddy or Transporter in this specific way of delivery for postal products is up to 16.8 liters consumption of diesel on 100 kilometers. So you see that it's far away from the testing cycles. They are run by the OEM, but it's not because of the OEM. It is because of the kind of usage of the cars and the way in using the car in general. So there is definitely a need was seen by our board members for e-mobility, because we see, okay, there's environmental pollution from this high emission, and on top of it, we have residual value risks occurred from the Dieselgate. We have some EU proceedings against the countries and the cities. As you may know, almost every week another German city is prosecuted by German law in having diesel bans, so that diesel vehicles aren't allowed any longer in having their delivery or their inner city drives. So there is definitely a necessity in having electric mobility in German cities. So that is our current state of play. So right at the moment, we just crossed the high number of 9,000 street scooter Work and Work L in daily operations in Germany, domestic letter and parcel delivery service. We have more than 9,300 charging points installed right now. So we still have a little bit of a positive gap. So we can even produce a little bit more of the street scooters until for the peak season this year, and we can bring them into service. So we estimate by the end of the year we will break through the wall of 10,000 electric vehicles on domestic service here in Germany. Since the introduction of street scooter, we have now more than 42 million kilometers driven only on electric mobility. On top of that, we have 3,500 pedelecs or e-bikes and e-trikes in use for inner city delivery. And we have now the CO2-free parcel delivery launched with the Street Scooter XL. I will show something a little bit more later in the presentation. And yes, we have a successful start of the production of the Work XL in cooperation with the Ford company. May I now come to the history of Street Scooter itself a little bit more. There's a timeline. We start in the year 2010, and there was this university project run by two very keen professors, Professor Achim Kamker, which is still one of the managing director of Street Scooter, and Professor Günther Schuh. He is now the managing director of the Ego company. It's a small electric passenger car, which is also built in Aachen. But in 2010, both professors started the project with their students at the University of Aachen, and the first prototype was shown on the International Motor Fair 2011 in Frankfurt. You see on the picture in the left, Chancellor Angela Merkel shaking hands with Achim Kamker, and next to Angela Merkel, one of our board members visited the International Motor Fair as well, and he was absolutely overwhelmed by the idea in having an electric car in postal service, and so there was the connection made between Deutsche Post DHL and the Street Scooter, or the University of Aachen at that time, having the simple question: if there's any possibility that the project can build up a delivery van on electric mobility. And Achim Kampka said, yes, why not? We should try. And in the year 2012, the first prototype of the street scooter work came to life. And in 2013, they started with the testing and preparation of the first pilot series with a 50 series, and later on with a 100 series. So it means 50 cars in the first row and 100 additional cars in the second row. And in total, in the year 2014, 150 street scooter work vehicles were in a nationwide live testing environment. And by the end of the year 2014, Deutsche Post DHL bought Street Scooter, and since then it's a 100% subsidiary of the group. And in the year 2015, the series production with the car started. At the beginning with the smaller vehicle, it's a Street Scooter Work. Later on, the size of the payload and the pay volume increased, and there was the introduction of the Street Scooter Work L. Yeah, in the year 2017, there was a strong request from the third market from a company perspective, and so there was a decision made that the street scooter can be offered to the third-party market, so for foreign postal companies, as an example, or even to plumbers or to gardeners or to local communities, and so on and so on. And in this year, 2018, we started with the first tests of the street scooter outside the domestic letter and parcel delivery division within the group, and we started testing the street scooter at one of the DHL divisions, it's DHL Express in Germany and DHL Supply Chain in the UK. Let's go a little bit back in the past again to see what is the speciality of the car itself. So on the left pictures you see through the window and behind the lovely postal woman and common Volkswagen Caddy, which is still very common in a daily use for letter delivery. And on the right you see that these postal servicemen and women were included into the build-up of a completely new car with their own specifics. So they have a better surround view in the daily routes they are driving. They have a ergonomic compartment in the back of the car. Entering and leaving the car is especially made for the postal service men and women. When you imagine that you are entering and leaving the car 300 times a day, you definitely need a special seat. You definitely need a special entrance. You need a special door which is able to open up, most likely 1 million times during the lifetime of the car. And everything was installed in a so-called lab car from laboratory, and everything what the 150 servicemen and women brought up in Aachen at university were included in the car. That you see on this page. So there is enough space for the handhelds. There's enough space for water bottles. There is space for this small cards they are writing when someone isn't at home during the time of the delivery. There is a possibility in recharging all their mobile devices. And when you see on the small picture in the upper right with the red arrow, there is no passenger airbag on this side, because of on the passenger side there is normally installed a letterbox where all these sorted letters for the daily tour is installed. So in the compartment they're most likely the parcels, and then on the passenger side there are the letters for the households. So there's no passenger airbag at that side, but on top of that, the car is completely equipped with everything a postman is needed during the day. So there's a seat heating system, there's a front window heating system, you have a heating system. With the next generation of the street scooter in the year 2019, there will be a steering wheel heating system as well, and there's on top of that the possibility in include air conditioning system as well. So then there is a hands-free speakerphone. So everything what is needed for having a safe drive during the day is included in the car, and everything based on the necessities and needs from the postal serviceman. May I switch now to the product portfolio of the company? So you see there is next to the cars, where you see in the middle and on the right, Street Scooters also producing bikes and trikes with electric batteries. But I try to focus here on Work and Work L, the main products of the company. You see they have the specifications of the car: 4.3 cubic meters in pay volume and 8 cubic meters. The payload 740 kilogram and up to almost 1 ton. Both cars are equipped with a battery capacity of 40 kilowatt hours. The smaller version, the Work, was originally intended only with 20 kilowatt hours battery capacity because of the price, but it's definitely fully enough for the domestic letter and parcel service. So, and on the right side, you see the Street Scooter Work XL, which started with the first series production in the last couple of days. It is in cooperation together with the Ford Motor Company in Cologne, Germany, and in 2019 the series of the production will start. We have a 20 cubic meters pay volume capacity in the box. We have a payload of 1.3 tons, and the car will be equipped with a battery capacity between 30 and 90 kilowatt hours, depending on the area of where the car will be used, and so the range differentiates between 80 and 200 kilometers a day. Let's have a brief overview about what are the arguments using the cars on top of the Post and Parcel division in Germany. For the international DHL divisions, depending on the country, you can have an environmental bonus up to 8,800 euros. So in the UK, for example, when the car will be equipped as a right-hand drive vehicle, then there's a possibility to be listed in the UK grant scheme for electric mobiles. So it is an advantage in getting partially the car be funded from the government, and in several other European countries is as well. What we see in Germany, and I think it will be the same in other European countries, is we have an maintenance and repair cost reduction in between 60 and 80% in comparison to a diesel-propelled car. There is in Germany the expression that the garages, they become liquid through the liquids. That means if you refill a lot of oil and brake fluid and so on, there is a high surcharge and a premium of these liquids. But with an electric car, the kind of liquids is only reduced to the brake fluid, which is needed to be checked up every 2 years, and another liquid is just the wiper fluid. So the garages can't make any liquid with liquids. So there's one of the topics why it is a strong reduction in the maintenance and repair cost. Depending on the price of electricity in the country, we see 60 to 70% less energy costs in comparison to diesel. As I mentioned before, the average fuel consumption for a Volkswagen Transporter is 16.8 liters per 100 kilometer, which is a lot here, but it's not on the fault of the OEM Volkswagen. It is on the kind of usage, as I mentioned before. And Germany is a very high price country for electricity. So with all these methods of recuperation, start and stop cycles with electric cars, we can save up to 60 to 70% of the energy costs. On top of it, it is pretty comfortable in charging the car. In the postal depots, there is the charging infrastructure installed, 9,300 charging points at the moment, and we are still planning in building up to 3,500 to 5,000 charging points for next year. So we have enough room and space for widen the fleet within Germany with electric mobiles as well. And on top of that, and it is definitely true, we have a really enhanced image within Deutsche Post DHL since we introduced the street scooter into service. When you see the press review, almost every day at least 3 to 10 different articles are read in German newspapers about the introduction of the car in a daily service. So last but not least, I want to share one little outview. We tested the car outside of Germany. We tested in the UK with DHL Supply Chain National Health Service in London, Wembley. We took in street scooter work, so it's just a smaller one, but with a huge battery capacity. We tested in July and in August. For commuting blood and cell samples between different hospitals and laboratories in London. So the profile in running the car is almost the same than it is in domestic letter service in Germany. And we have a very good driver feedback for the car and handling of the car, the overall usage. And on top of that, it had a very positive effect as well, so that third parties were requested in having a testing cycle with the car as well. So Transport for London is the company who was running the buses and the undergrounds in London, requested a test, and we made it. The test ended last Friday, and on next week we are transferring the car to Heathrow Airport, and as well there is a high demand in testing the car, and even the supermarket company Marks and Spencer tested for several days the car, and maybe let's see what comes out of it. So that's almost done. There's a brief overview about the advantages of the car. So we have almost everywhere the possibility in deploying e-mobility, where the driving cycles is okay for the car, where the driver license are good for the car, is depending on the individual legislation in the countries. It is very good for inner city traffic because of the size and the surround view of the car. We have a very positive business case in the total cost of ownership. But, and this is where the mark is, it is not only a car, it is a system. So you can't think only about the car, you have to think about the system, and the system includes a charging capacity, and you have to keep in mind upfront before you introduce the car into service what it's needed to be done. So you have an infrastructure to be installed so you can charge your car properly and can use it properly. So that's it. Thank you very much. And now I'm ready to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars, for that interesting presentation. We have Lars with us here. So I would like to ask if anyone has any questions specifically for Lars related to this presentation. I have one person already raising his hand, David, and I will give the floor to you, and the rest of you, please raise your hand or write in the chat if you have a question as well. Lars, could you also perhaps unmute yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks for your presentation, Lars. Really, really interesting. Just one question on your charging infrastructure. Did DHL install the charging posts themselves, or did you use a third party to do the work? And are all charging posts serviced by the same back office support?
Okay, can everyone hear me? Am I unmuted now? Yeah,
yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, David, thank you for the question. I have to say yes and no. So we installed the charging infrastructure, with service partners, but mainly with a team based in Bonn. So they have the preparation made, and then we have three main contractors. One of them is the company called Innogy. It's a subsidiary of RWE, one of the biggest power suppliers in Germany. And then the company EBG and Exact. So there are more smaller companies in Germany. And together with them, the team from Street Scooter, they found out the depots where they first install the charging infrastructure. They make all the measurements, the groundworks, it started 5 years ago, and until now we have 9,500 charging points at the moment. So yes, it's the combination between service partners and own knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Good. We have another question from Swiss Post, Florian Meyer. Please go ahead. Can you hear us, Florian? No. Let's give him a minute and see. So we have also interest noted from the Emirates Post. I will unmute you so you can ask your question.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It was a really interesting presentation there, and we would like to ask, considering the conditions in the Middle East with the high temperature and the extensive use of air conditioning and limited charging station, how practical can it be for us to make the switch from the petrol engines to the electric vehicles here?
I would say just the switch from petrol engines to electric mobility isn't that it's hard. It's pretty easy because you drive the street scooter with an automatic gear shift as you're driving a regular petrol car as well. The main important thing is definitely what you mentioned is about keeping in mind that there's high temperature. I think in the Emirates maybe there's a low humidity, which is a little bit better than you have a high humidity than in the Asian Pacific countries like Singapore or Thailand. But at the moment, the car and everything within the car and around the car is mainly based on the middle or Central European average temperatures. So when we go up to the north of Europe or down in the south where the temperatures are lower or higher during the seasons, we have to test it, and that's what I can recommend to you. If you're really interested into the car, then let's say send me an email and let's discuss this outside of this group, what we can do and what can we arrange. So I think there's always a possibility in sending a car to you for testing purposes, so we can both learn about the impact of temperature. Regarding charging infrastructure, it really depends on the power supply in the country itself. So what we see is in countries like Singapore, as an example, where there's a strong power line, or in Japan as well, there's only a very tiny obstacle to overcome to install the infrastructure. But when you go to countries like South Africa, as an example, where the electricity is sometimes on, sometimes it's off, you need a reliable power grid to charge the cars overnight. Is this answering your question?
Yes, it does. It's a wonderful answer, and we will look forward to probably keeping in touch regarding this. It's a good initiative, and of course, our future should be carbon footprint free. Reduce as much as we can.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
maybe we can ask Lovisa if she can share our contact details with each other, and so we can send an email or have a phone call conversation as well.
Certainly, we will make sure to connect it to
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have a question from Florian Meyer from Swiss Post. Unfortunately, he has trouble with his microphone, but he sent through a question in the chat. And that is whether there are any plans for employees to have the opportunity to charge their vehicle at their home.
Regarding the street scooter, yes, they are. That is a very good question. So in Germany, we have these situation that sometimes when the daily tour of the postal service management is very long, then they can take the operational car with them to home, which is with a diesel engine, very easy to do because they can refill the tank during the tour. With electric mobility, not, but the Deutsche Telekom, which is a telecommunication company, they are at the moment planning to install 12,000 public charging stations, mainly on the countryside of Germany, not inner cities, or on the countryside. And there is the idea in having a kind of joint venture, or having a contractual situation between Deutsche Post, DHL, and the Deutsche Telekom. That maybe there's a possibility that these postal men can take the car with them during the night times at home, and there is a charging spot from Deutsche Telekom where they can recharge next or in their neighborhood the car overnight. Is this answering the question?
So unfortunately, Florian cannot talk to us, but he says in the chat that yes, it does, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have one more question, also from the Swiss Post, from Michael Graf. I will make that the last question directly related to this presentation, so that we have enough time for the presentation from La Poste. And then we will have some time at the end where we can still discuss and ask some broad questions. So, Michael, are you able to talk to us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Lars, thank you very much for the interesting presentation and the impressive numbers you have already.
Very welcome.
Very impressive. So, what I would like to know is, I would like to hear a little bit more about your charging infrastructure, because that's a really, it's a hot topic, and it's hard to fulfill everything that you need to charge all your vehicles. For example, how do you do it with? Do you use intelligent wall boxes on your cars, or are they just put on the wall and you plug in the plug and then it's okay?
It's both. It's both, and it depends on the location of the depot from the post from the post. So sometimes they're very stupid charging wall boxes. So there's just a plug on it, and you can plug it into the car. And sometimes there are some more intelligent wall boxes installed. But on top of it, and mainly the intelligent sits within the car. So every car which is in postal service have a so-called car-to-cloud box installed with a SIM card from Vodafone and Deutsche Telekom, one of the two biggest mobile providers. And the car is transmitting at the end of the daily service an impulse to the main cloud, to Aachen, to the manufacturer, to Street Scooter itself, and give the data about what was my daily mileage, I was driven, what was my route, is everything okay with the car, and now I'm able to go to the charging station. So, and the charging station is 100% connected to the car. So there is charging station A, and it needs to be charged car A. So, and there's charging station B, and it needs to be connected to car B. There's no possibility that you can switch from charging station A with car B and charging station B with car A. Then you have no opportunity to recharge the car. It is because of the power supply. When you imagine you have in one depot sometimes 30 or 35 cars, and you will charge them at the same time, then the complete power grid of the next biggest city will break down. So then you have to charge the cars in several time gaps during the night. So the cars started in charging mostly at 5 in the afternoon, and they will end the charging at 6 in the morning the next day. So you have almost 13 hours in between where you can separate the different cars in the depot, where you can charge the car. They will charge after one another. So it is, to answer the question again, it is a mixture between a very stupid kind of charging station and an intelligent one.
Okay, very interesting. Because we are doing some testing with like I'm pretty sure you know those things like object and has to be and those kind of things. Because we have buildings that are shared by different business units, and also the charging points can be shared by different business units, which makes it pretty complicated actually. So that's why I would really like to maybe you have some information that you could share with us about your charging infrastructure.
Yeah, just send me an email. And I will forward it to the charging infrastructure team. They have definitely more insights than I have. I think this what I've said is
perfect.
Is that what we or what I can share at the moment. But we would have the same problem like you described when we had, for example, Deutsche Post domestic letter service and DHL Express, which is a subsidiary of the company as well, in the same depot, because the kind of usage of the car and the kind of the necessity what they need out of the car is completely different, and that's why it would occur some problems with the charging infrastructure as well. But at the moment they are separate and completely different depots, and they have completely different charging infrastructure. But if there is a possibility to have combined this in one facility, then we would have to have most likely the same problem.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lars, and thank you very much, Michael. Let me know if you need me to connect the two of you, if you are not already in touch. And now we need to move forward to our next presentation so that we have enough time. So now we have Antoine Doussaint from Le Groupe La Poste in France. Before we start that presentation, I would like to clarify some abbreviations that are being used on the slide. So Antoine refers to electrical vehicles consistently as EV, which I am sure most of you are familiar with. He also mentioned something called Delivery H+, which is an express delivery that La Poste has, which delivers under 1 hour. He talks about TCO, which stands for total cost of ownership. And then finally, GNV, which is a natural gas-driven vehicle. So I hope that can help you in this presentation, and we will start.
I am Antoine Doussaint. I'm working in the Groupe La Poste, and I'm in charge of environment issue into the CSR department. The speech will focus on electrical vehicle. We have 3 sustainable issues in our CSR strategy. We have social and regional cohesion. Secondly, responsible and ethical digital services. On the point which will be the focus point for today is environmental transition. La Poste is incorporating environmental consideration into its business model by low carbon building solution, renewable energy, and clean transportation. Next. So it started more 1 century ago, because it's at the beginning of the 19th century when the La Poste used its first heavy. It was Midley, and it has continued during the whole century until now. Next. More recently, during the last 10 years, in 2009, La Poste was a leader in a collective public tender based on 50,000 unit commitment, and the result is the contract with Renault we have for the Kangoo ZE. In 2010, we use our first Quadeo, which are a very light duty vehicle. In 2014, we use our first Stabi delivery. It's 3 electrical wheels. And today, in 2018, we are launching our first green bond emission in order to finance EV fleet. We have the target of 10,000 EV in 2020. Next. So the La Poste electric fleet is composed with several vehicles. We have the Kangoo Z2. We've got 7,200 units. We have also the Stabi. It's a 3-wheels vehicle. We've got 5,200 units. And we have also a very light duty vehicle, 4 wheels. His name is Quadeo, and we have 1,200 units. Of course, we have also the electric bicycle, 23,000 units. Also a caddy or a cart. We have 1,000 units. Next. So at the end of the day, La Poste now use almost 40,000 electrical vehicles on delivery in France each day. It represents 40% of the total fleet on 14 of the light-duty truck fleet. Next. Before presenting the SWOT of EV, I would like to talk about two main points. The first main point is the 3 levels of maturity. We know that compliance on the regulation is becoming a real issue about how we will still going to deliver services in urban areas and in the non-emission zone. So it's a compliance issue. La Poste prepared itself to this obligation with a strong sustainability commitment, and is an exemplary leader in the EV sector. As we said, we have one of the first EV fleet of the world. La Poste participates to the transformation of the industrial transition vehicle sector, leading a collective tender for 50,000 units, as I said before. Next. The fleet we decomposed is a dynamic fleet. In the next years, we will have a lot of transformation. Because of the decrease of mail, we know that we will have longer routes on more kilometers a loop. Because of the increase of parcel, we know that we will have to upsize vehicle for having more volume. Because of the delivery H+, we know that we will need a vehicle for full day use. So this 3 issue will have an impact on our fleet. We know that we will have to decrease our electrical bike fleet because we need more volume, because we need to have longer routes. We know that we will have to increase Stabi's fleet for the same reason. We will be looking for the future of urban delivery, like electrical caddy, cargo bike, moving lockers. So it's it's an important issue for our technical department. We know that we will decrease our Kangoo's fleet because we need more volume, more size. A Kangoo is 3-4 meter cube, and we know that we need to replace them by 5-6 meter cube vehicle. And we know that gas vehicle will be needed for what we call before last kilometer, to refill urban center. Before the last kilometer, we know that to access the city center, we will have to develop gas vehicle. Next. So maybe to have a feedback of our activity on our EV fleet, I propose to comment a SWOT. So our strength for beginning, as I said, we have the heavy fleet represents 40% of our total fleet, and 14% of the light duty truck fleet. So it's a good thing. The trend is good because this EV fleet was 36% in 2016, and now it's 40%. We have strong sustainability commitment. As we said in the introduction, we have heavy targets. We confirm that the TCO is okay after 60 kilometers per day for cars. We know now that EV can use during 6 years instead of 5 years planned. On the last point of the strength is we decided in 2016 to power our building with 100 energy renewable. So it's our strength for the moment. The opportunity, no, the weakness. The weakness. We know that industrial series are better than little production. It's not complicated to know that, but we confirm that because the fail rate for the Kangoo is almost 0.3% a day. For the 3 wheels, it's 3% a day. We know that endurance of battery are okay for car, but we had a lot of failure on the endurance C for bicycle. So we had also a problem with fire on battery. So we have it could be an advice to test and improve the risk of fire on battery. The maintenance is a real issue for EV, and we must be beware of the maintenance network on the speed of delivery of spare parts. Another weakness is of course the EV initial purchase price, which is 25% higher than thermic solution. The heavy first generation, the Kangoo Z first generation, is already outdated in terms of self-sufficiency battery. In Paris, we have a particular rules. It's forbidden to charge EV under the first down floor level. So it's a very strong weakness, and we are working for go through this these particular rules. And maybe the last weakness is the specific postal use. You know, the stop and go very frequently, which limits the self-sufficiency standard announced by the manufacturer. Next. If we talk about opportunities, we know that diesel will decrease very quickly in motor production. We have partnership with motor manufacturer in developing new EV generation, and we know the roadmap of all the manufacturer, and we see the transformation of the diesel and the decrease of the diesel roadmap. The new Kangoo Z2 generation's self-sufficiency lasts twice longer than the previous, so it's a very good point because for the TCO it's very important. We will speak about the TCO at the end of the presentation. Battery with recycled technology is really improving, and we know that high-speed charging, hybrid and technology of long-range battery will help us a lot of vehicle solution. We have the opportunity in France with government and public financial incentives. And we have also regulation on center restriction access, which are beginning a standard. So it could be an opportunity, could be a threat, but it's both. And for the end, the threat, there is a limit for the product availability. We haven't the manufacturer offer that we wish for the moment. In France, we have just one French electric bike supplier. We have no industrial solution for EV 3 wheels and cargo bike. So we are looking for. We developed with a local manufacturer, but we will really try to have an industrial solution. There is an issue on the second-hand value. The second-hand value is unknown for the moment, and it's a strong issue for the TCO. Government and public financial incentives are moving every year by the financial annual law. So it's really difficult to anticipate and to program, to plan the investment for the EV fleet. Because initial purchase EV price is still higher than thermic vehicle. For example, our Stabi cost 7,000 euro, and we know that a thermic scooter cost just 1,000 euro. So not the same. I said before that regulation on center restriction was an opportunity, but it could be a threat. Regarding in France the decision on the regulation in Strasbourg, where it's forbidden to access to the center city from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So even if we have EV solution, 3 or 4 wheels, it's forbidden. So we have to find other solution, alternative solution, like cargo car, like I talk about the future urban delivery solution. It is what about. We know that in center areas, it will be forbidden to access even with EV solution. So it's something like a threat. Maybe the last point, it's a sort of synthèse, resume. I would like to focus on main point of the TCO. Our first data of the simulation TCO model were based on the theoretical exploitation behavior. And we have more and more knowledge of real data that allows us to improve and reinforce the calculation TCO result. The first point is, we talked about, the first point is a second-hand price. It's one of the main issues in lease financial solution. This second-hand market doesn't exist yet. At the end of this year, La Poste will have sold 500 units. So I think we at the end of the years we will have a first view about what will be the second-hand price. But our first tests are not really positive, so the trend is not yet positive. We know that the second-hand value will be lower than we expected. So it's not a good point, and it's not a good news for our TCO model. The second point is the maximum lifetime of EV. It's a good news. The experience feedback shows us that vehicles could run 1 year more than expected, so 5 years to 6 years. And the TCO is positively affected by this lifetime extension. Recharging infrastructure investment cost. New smart and high-speed charging infrastructure are more expensive than previous generation. So it's an issue for the updating TCO. We are very careful with the gap between the cost of fuel, diesel, electricity. The gap is getting thinner, and it's a good thing for the TCO. In France, we have at the moment a controversy about the carbon tax on the diesel price. So it's a good news for the TCO and for the EV solution, but we need to be very careful and look very careful. And maybe the last point, the TCO, the internal value of greenhouse gas on air quality emission are not included into the TCO. It's something very important because we know that the TCO is positive when the kilometer is up to 60 kilometers a route a day for a car. And the impact, the consequences, is that we put EV more in a non-urban zone because of the routes, but we need to have EV into the city, in the urban zone. So one solution to go toward these things is to include into the TCO the internal value of greenhouse gas and air quality. It's an issue we are working on. It's not really easy, but it's the way to have EV in the center of the city on with a positive TCO. I have finished my my presentation. I hope it was focused on what you were expected. And thank you for hearing.
Well, thank you, Antoine. It's a bit weird to say thank you, Antoine, because Antoine could sadly not make it into the webinar today. What we would suggest, also looking at the time, is that if you have questions to Antoine, just send them to us by email, and we will make sure that Antoine gets them. That would be probably the easiest thing to do and the fastest thing, because I know that some of you probably have other meetings now starting. By the way, the whole event is recorded and will be made available on our website over the next weeks. We will, of course, we have your email addresses. We will let you know when that is the case, so you can, in all quietness, you can look at the presentations and you can have the PowerPoint easier seen, probably and possibly. Then there's only one or two other things I would like to say, and that is thank you to Lars Pappe from Deutsche Post, and thank you to Antoine Doussaint from the Groupe Poste for giving us the presentations. And of course, a very big thank you to you, the attendees. Thank you so much for your interest, for your inputs, and for your time. I hope it gave you the information that you are after, and it met up to the expectations. And then the last thing from my side is wishing you all a very nice sunny day today, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much also from me. Have a good day. Bye-bye.